So the March for Our Lives is happening right now. It's happening in like continents all over the world for some reason. This is always the case, and it always happens in Canada, and typically like Toronto or something. But we have these marches to March for Our Lives, and to show our solidarity, and then we have our own politicians coming out too, and now saying they want to take away and put more restrictions on gun rights in Canada. So I this is bullshit. They use things that happen in other countries in order to take away our rights in our own country, even when these things are not happening in our own country the same rate. So this is just bullshit. It's not march to save our lives. It's march to take away our rights. That's what it is, and that's what it should be called. Because it's people that are not against the NRA, they're against the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment, whether you like it or not, is a right that Americans have. It is a right, okay? And that is to protect yourself. And having a gun is involved in that. Because nowadays, you can't just protect yourself with a big fucking stick. You are going to need something that is comparable to fight back against somebody who has a gun. And it is for the government as well. It is also for personal protection. And you gotta think about it. Like, cops will take 5 to 10 minutes to get to where your location is. And if you live in a ghetto, if you live in some other areas, they may not show up at all, right? So you do need to rely on ourselves. And this is the problem with society nowadays, is they come in and they want the government to take care of everything. If it's not health care they're taking care of, they're taking care of education, they're taking care of all this shit. And then they're going to come in taking care of gun control, all this crap. And that's not going to help anybody. It's going to make the situation worse. Whenever they take control of anything, it gets worse. You're just going to take away the average citizen's ability to protect themselves. And if you don't think it's good for the average citizen to have a gun, look at what's going on in the UK right now. There's a guy by the name of Count Dankula, and he is being charged and possibly put in jail because he was making fun of Nazis or Hitler. He dressed up his dog, his little pug, as a little Nazi, and made him do like little salutes, and this has landed him in jail. And I'm telling you, the only reason your leaders feel like they can take advantage of you like this is because you do not have guns and gun rights. Like, even in Canada, we do have a lot more gun rights than the average citizen in the UK, right? So it is not as bad here. You do definitely see a correlation between gun rights in countries and the rights of speech. You look at the countries where they have pretty much no gun rights. They have very, very restrictive rights on speech. Look at Germany. Look at the UK. Then you look at other countries that are just pretty much dictators of themselves, like in the Middle East or this and that. They have blasphemy laws, all this shit. So, this is what they were going to do. They just want to take away your rights, not for life. And this is the funny thing too. It's like these kids, they're like, we are the generation that has to huddle in classrooms and do this and do that. It's like, you guys are literally in the most peaceful time in history. You are the safest generation that has ever existed. So you are much less likely to be killed at this point in history by a murderer than any point in history that we humans know of. So this is just complete fucking nonsense. They're not showing the kids that disagree with this, like that Kyle kid and this other kid, that they are not put on the cover of Time magazines. They are not doing anything like this because they go against the narrative that the left is trying to push, and they're just trying to use these kids to sway the younger generation in order to vote Democrat. So then, to take away more gun rights. Because, kids are stupid. This is why you do not want to raise or lower the age of voting. If anything, it needs to be raised because these kids are 18, 17, and they are trying to change a lot of kids' minds, and they're going to be swayed, and they're going to be swayed through peer pressure as well. Because, you have all these teachers, you have all these kids when these marches happen, come out, and they're like, all right, everybody, let's go on these marches. Now, there's going to be some kids who disagree. They're going to feel obligated to go along with these marches. Because if they stay back, what do you think is going to happen to them? The teachers themselves, who are liberal fucking cucks, will come out and, shame them. And then their students will come out as well and be like, well, you want kids to die too? You want us to get killed? You want kids to get butchered? You're not against the NRA like we are. So this is what it's going to create. It's going to create more hate, more division among the younger generation. And, the liberals, they don't care. They're going to use these kids to push their agenda. They're going to put all these kids on TV like they're doing now and making them cry for like 6 minutes. Like, one thing we got to remember, these kids are actors. They're all in drama class. And the things that they were saying is clearly being fed to them from an adult. Okay, they're not coming up with this themselves. And apparently this march thing that has millions of people going to it has been organized only pretty much by kids. That is bullshit. Clearly they're getting help from adults, George Soros, all of these people who come in and bust these kids around and move them around the country to try to create the image that there's some grassroots movement, but honestly, a lot of these kids, like I said, are going to these marches, are just being forced out of class to go, so it makes it seem like there's a lot more support. But really, this is the minority. The majority of people do not want to take away gun rights. They do not want to take away all this shit, and this is why they try so hard to brush off kids like that Kyle kid who is actually for the Second Amendment, all this shit, because they don't want to create the impression. They don't want to show you. They want to show you the extreme voices, so you get the impression that this is the way that kids and all these kids think. And this is pretty much just to kind of dissuade you from going to vote eventually, because you're like, you're thinking to yourself like, oh, these little kids, next couple years, they're all gonna vote Democrat. So it's like, you'd be like, maybe I shouldn't even go and vote, because how am I going to compete against all these voices on TV and the media that are telling me that they are going to vote this, they're going to vote this. It's just trying to get you to stay home. And it's also trying to get, trying to shame other kids and using peer pressure on other people in order to get them to vote Democrat. and it's so fucking low. It's like, the blood is on your hands, the NRA. I forget, there was some chant today. It was like, NRA, kill something. How many kids have you killed today? None. The NRA is not responsible for any deaths. Okay, the murderers, the killers, they are responsible for the deaths, and it's the policies that are responsible. Like, there was an article from Salon who was bitching to Trump. They're like, oh, Trump wants to remove these policies, these Obama era policies that made it so less minority children went to prison. The prison to school, or the school to prison shoot, or whatever. So they're already coming out saying that he's racist because he wants to dismantle this policy, these programs. But this is the program that led to the shooting. Like, this is the program that let a lot of kids who were minorities more often let off with crimes, because before Obama, he's like, oh, there's too many, colored kids going into prison right after school. We need to stop this. So it was his policies that have directly led to this kid being let off the hook. It's directly the liberals' policies' fault, right? If this kid would have been if he would have had a record like he would have had before these policies were put in place by Obama and stuff, and by the superintendent and by the school, there was like 50 schools that tried these policies, right? If they were not in place, this kid would have had a record, and when the FBI was notified, they would have known that, oh, okay, this kid has a record, he said all this shit, let's flag him and actually check this out. But because that did not happen, they just kind of brushed it off, which they should have still checked anyways, but they brushed it off because they didn't have all these other flags, red flags, in their system, and then they let the kid get away. But you'll never hear any of this in the March for Life, any of this. All they're going to talk about is the NRA and the donations that these politicians get from the NRA. And the NRA, like I said, is just code for gun rights. They're not against the NRA. They are against the Second Amendment, and they will only be happy when all of your guns are taken away and you are all disarmed. But it's like they understand that's not going to happen either. So it's like they're really just, it seems to me, like pushing for a conflict, because they know there are many people who will never give up their weapons, right? And if you get enough people to maybe vote for something to start taking away, that's going to start conflict. And then that will create more of a reason for them to expand government even more. They're going to be like, well, okay, we need to do this so we have to forcefully take away these people's guns now, right? So it's not leading to any real change. I don't think these people think these marches, the rhetoric they're using is going to really lead to any legislative change. What it's going to lead to is people fighting in the streets. It's going to lead to people, just hating each other more and being more divided ideologically, and being more separate from each other. We're not going to talk to each other anymore because, you're going to think I'm a kid killer because I support the NRA or I support gun rights. It's like, well, you don't care about children. This is the way politicians separate us. You're not for abortion, or you're against abortion. You're this, you're that. You're this, you're that, right? It's bullshit. We're all just regular fucking people. Most people do not want to see children die. We just have disagreements. I think this would work better this way, and you think this would work better that way. I don't think you are an evil person. I don't think most liberals or progressives are evil. I think that they think a certain way, and they've been convinced that certain things are necessary in order to live in a good, safe, happy life. We need to take away some people's rights, and this is for the best. But they are wrong. But I don't think they're a monster for thinking this. I just think they're wrong. But in their circumstance, I am a horrible, horrible, horrible person because I believe people have the right to defend themselves. But, that's all I pretty much had to say. If you like my content, subscribe and have a good day. See ya.